Well, I see some familiar names in the mix. We'll get started in just a minute or so.
All righty, good evening, everyone. It's just after 7 o'clock here in Charlotte. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight for our Alumni Association travel webinar. My name is Scott Plunkett. I'm a 2005 graduate of UNC Charlotte, and I work as Director of Alumni Operations and Special Projects here in Alumni Engagement. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We will be taking questions throughout the night. If you will use the chat and Q&A feature for Zoom, we will get to the questions at the end of the presentation. And just as a side note, we will be recording the session, so we can definitely share that on our YouTube channel after the presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jody Kaplan, our Executive Director of Alumni Engagement.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everybody. I am really excited to say we've had almost 70 people sign up for this webinar tonight. So I think there really is a thirst for alumni travel. I got here about a year ago, and something I noticed was that there were certain programs that other alumni associations across the country do that we didn't have here. And alumni travel was one of them. So Scott and I got right down to business with looking at the world of alumni travel. And very easily, we found Orbridge as the right partner for us on this. In the world of alumni relations, we share a lot of things. And the reputation that Orbridge has in the alumni association world is top notch. So we're really pleased to be partnering with them. Our inaugural trip to Tuscany is leaving in 2 days from now. So we have 4 travelers on there. And tonight we're going to hear about a great lineup of our 2025 trips. So fasten your seatbelts, put up your tray tables. Let's get ready to take off for tonight's travel. I want to introduce Bobby Bingle. Bobby is our Orbridge representative. He serves as the Senior Director of Sales and Product Development for Orbridge. For over a decade, he's worked in various roles in the educational travel industry, from his early days as an architectural guide in Chicago to his journeys with leading academic institutions. He's witnessed the enriching power of travel. He's been fortunate to lead trips for several of the destinations being discussed today. He's grateful for the opportunity to introduce the 2025 trips with Orbridge and the UNC Charlotte Alumni Association. So without further ado, I give it to Bobby.
Thank you, Jody. And thank you, Scott. I'm going to try to share my screen here. And we'll do this. All right. Can you see it? Excellent. Well, thank you, first of all, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to spend some time with you this evening, talk about the UNC Charlotte travel program and some of the trips for 2025. I am calling in from Chicago. I've been fortunate to spend some time in Charlotte and always really thoroughly enjoy it. It's funny hearing Jody read off that mini bio. I actually first started in tourism as a 17-year-old doing riverboat architectural tours in Chicago. And whether or not the accuracy of my facts were 100%, I certainly enjoyed it and got the tourism bug going up and down the river throughout the summers. And so, and now I've been in this educational travel world with alumni associations for, over a decade now. And it's a really neat one. So Jody and Scott have done a fantastic job just in the first year or so. We're now going into year 2 of trips. And I think we have a wide range of style of trip, group size, price point, time of year, activity level that I'll be able to dive into here But I think first, for some of you, maybe it'd be helpful just to kind of explain what is the alumni travel world, the industry. Some people don't know about it. It's a very small sliver of the travel industry, but I think it's a great one. Let's see. There we go. Hang on. So these are the 4 trips. I'll talk about those a little bit later, but as I said, you have a wide variety here. So next winter, we're going to start off with bucket list trip, Galapagos Islands. It also features a Machu Picchu extension, so just spectacular. But then you can see we shift back to North America. So we'll have a domestic trip in the midsummer, beautiful time of year to be kind of in the north central US, Mount Rushmore, South Dakota, and then making our way down into Yellowstone as kind of the showstopper at the end of that trip. Europe next August, where we'll go to Scotland from Glasgow to Edinburgh, the Highlands, the Lowlands in between, but then it culminates in what they call the military tattoo performance. And it's an absolutely spectacular show right at the entrance to Edinburgh Castle. And that's kind of the way that trip concludes. And then we're back to North America and one of our most popular trips. It's the fall foliage going across almost the entire expanse of Canada, all the way from Vancouver to Toronto, with time in Vancouver and Toronto, and then on a 5-star luxury train. So a really, really good selection there. And I know Scott and Jody worked hard to offer a variety of options for 2025. So Orbridge, UNC Charlotte, alumni associations, a little bit of background. So we work almost entirely with university alumni associations. We work with a few nonprofits and museums, but about 95% of our clients are alumni associations. So by proxy of that, when we're developing trips, like the 4 I had previously mentioned, we're developing that with all of that in mind. So they're going to be educationally based, but also a lot of fun. There's going to be opportunities to kind of, bask in the affinity for your alumni association. You're traveling with fellow graduates. And these trips aren't open to the general public. Occasionally we'll get a few people here and there. But essentially we're doing it just for UNC Charlotte alumni. And then some of the trips that are larger group size might have 1 or 2 other schools. That always offers a really nice dynamic to the trip. You might be traveling to the Galapagos, with the University of Michigan or something like that, where you find a lot of different connections and it adds to it. So exclusive charters, what that means is that this is just your group and maybe 1 or 2 other schools that I'll explain during the further presentation. It's not like this is going to be a group of general public travelers and you. It's just UNC Charlotte and other alumni groups. So with all that in mind, with the education level, knowing that your graduates are age range, and wanting to have an immersive but educational experience, our trips are going to have the highest end local guides, experts. We have lecture series throughout. Sometimes we feature a professor from a given school. And we work on having private access to various places that you'll see later on as we go through some of these. So in a nutshell, it's really, really based around the affinity for your alumni association and knowing our travelers in our market. But don't let the educational element scare you. It's also just a lot of fun. So for example, one thing we do on every one of our itineraries is we're incorporating the flavors very deeply in an area. So in the Galapagos, we're doing multiple, in Quito, we do excursions where you're actually getting to see how some of the food is made in Ecuadorian cuisine, whether it's ceviche or a fresh fish. And we find that is such a telling part of a culture. But then you are, every step of the way, you are with a professional travel director or expedition leader from Orbridge. So from when you land to when you depart, you're with a professional travel director who knows the place like the back of their hand. They can give recommendations, but they also are overseeing everything from point A to B. So it takes away that worry of, am I seeing the right thing? If there's some interest I have, do I have to Google it? You just talk to your travel director, and these itineraries are very flexible to cater to various people's interests. The other nice thing is that it's almost entirely inclusive, sans flights. So flights are done on their own. We do have an air department that can assist with that, but we found people have so many different preferences, or they use miles and things of that nature, that we keep that separate. But other than that, you're going to have almost all of your meals taken care of with flexibility within it to go off on your own, go a little bit off the beaten path, do those kind of things, use the recommendations from your travel directors. But all your gratuities, your transfer, all the excursions, pretty much anything you can really think of beyond your own purchases, personal purchases, are included. And we've been going to these locations for 20 plus years. We've vetted these guides, so you don't have to worry that you're missing something necessarily. And they're there to help, so they can really customize, cater it to you. So this is the first trip, but it's tough to totally encapsulate or capture what alumni travel is, but that would be my best attempt in a very short window. You're traveling with other 49ers. It's itineraries that have been vetted, guides, local experts that have been vetted by companies who are only working with graduates of these great academic institutions like UNC Charlotte. And they're small groups. The maximum that you'll see today is 40 people, get exclusive access, and they're just wonderful destinations. So with that, and again, I can come back at the end if people have questions on a larger scale about the alumni travel industry market, and those implications. But the first one for 2025, I can't think of a better way to start the year off. It's going to be the Galapagos Islands. It's a group size of about 35 to 40 people. The first part of it is going to be on land in Quito. So you're down in Ecuador, and you fly into the islands, and then we start making this beautiful path and hitting multiple islands. There are some programs out there that you can do on the general public that aren't ship-based, where you fly in and you take, you rent a boat for a day, and it doesn't give you the flexibility of having a small 40-person ship that this trip does. We can follow various patterns of birds. We can change course if needed. And oftentimes we're pretty much the entire time where we're going, you're not going to see anybody else but our group, the landscapes, and then the wildlife. So we can dive in a little bit here. So one of the best parts about this is because we have this small ship that gives us the flexibility to go around, we're able to see what they call the Big 15. So these are so I think there's 80% of the land mammals are endemic, so only found in the Galapagos. And I think almost 90% of the birds are. These are the only place on the planet you can find them. And the route we have, you're going to see 14 of the Big 15 that you see up there. There's one, the albatross, that's seasonal, and it's a very remote island. But other than that, you'll see all of these things. I've never had somebody go on the trip and not see what you're seeing there, in addition to some other ones. So here we go. Quickly, the ship. 40 people max, all suites and staterooms, as you can see below. So it's kind of luxury expedition cruising. The ship was designed by Ecuadorian naturalists and the ship company. So they have things that you might not think about, like on the top deck. Instead of having regular chairs, they have them that all can recline about almost, 140 degrees or so, because this is some of the least light pollution anywhere in the world. It's right on the equator, and a lot of people will get a drink, go up top, and just lean back. So there's little touches like that you wouldn't necessarily think about. It's again, all Ecuadorian staff, so Ecuadorian international cuisine, but you can always get cheeseburgers, things like that if you need it. You have all states and suites and staterooms are going to be on the outside of the boat. So if you've ever seen a big boat, we're in the center and you're kind of sandwiched. You don't get into any of that. Excellent food, fine dining, and it just allows us to get access to more parts of the islands than a big ship or trying to do it just by land and ferry. What I really like, though, is we start in Quito and we do 2 nights in Quito. So some people will go down there and then they just shoot off to the islands, and they're missing the first ever UNESCO World Heritage city in Quito. It's a thriving city down there. It's rich flavors and culture. And so we'll do a tour of the old town. We stay at this fantastic old hotel. You see there, the Casa Gangotena, right in the heart of the city, and you kind of look up above the hill. of Quito. And then this is a prime example of something you will do that isn't open to the general public. So the Casa del El Bado Archaeological Museum, we have an exclusive access to off-site areas where we have a private lunch, and they bring out different Ecuadorian cuisines, and you're literally eating amongst pre-Columbian art and artifacts, over 1,000 years old, and it's just our group there. And then you can walk around and things of that nature, but that's the kind of thing you can't just Google and get that. And it just provides such more context to everything we're doing and where we're going. And then here we go. So we're on our way to the Galapagos. So it's about an hour or so flight. You go from coastal Ecuador into the islands. And we start right off the bat in it's the last time you're going to see humans for the remainder of the days in the Galapagos, really, other than your traveling partners. We start off on the Santa Cruz Highlands, where you have the Charles Darwin Research Center. It's one of the preeminent conservation institutions, certainly in South America, but also across the world. You've got you'll see our first giant tortoises on Santa Cruz Islands. Yeah, I took that picture. There was some miner, I don't know, I think he said he was from Charlotte there, that I happened to catch in the background. But it's incredible when you're going down there and you finally get there, and you're seeing this giant tortoise that's 120 years old, and your feet from it, and it's being completely protected by the Ecuadorians. They're so prideful. It can go a year without having nutrients and live. It's like I said, it can be 120 years old. So some people are saying it's called a giant tortoise. Maybe do something, it's a little on the nose, maybe do something more interesting. So there's a petition to call it the Keith Richard tortoise, but we'll see. Then Puerto Ayora is awesome. It's a beautiful little town. There's only about maybe 5,000 people who live there. And again, it's the taking off point, but great food, and you can talk to people about what you're going to see later on the trip. So it's kind of it's an energy builder when you get there for the first time. So to give you an idea of what are some of the things you will do in the Galapagos, so up on the top left there are what they call zodiacs. And so that's a little fortified raft, and it's about 8 or 9 people on it. And that you can go up close into all the nooks and crannies of the various islands we visit. You can then you land off of that. So you can kind of get an idea there that it's the real deal. It's not like you're getting off on a pier or anything like that. You have ample opportunity to do outdoor activities like snorkeling or kayaking, hiking, but you're always with one of our naturalists. So you're maybe a group of 4 people and you're the only people that want to go up to a high outcrop. You're going to be with that guide to provide you the context of what you're seeing. I don't know if any of you could recognize like a San Cristobal flycatcher or a long-billed flycatcher, but you don't have to worry about that because your guide will tell you what you're seeing, and it's great. And you can kind of see it's the volcanic atmosphere. They're young islands in terms of the grand global scheme, so a lot of them are still, you can see the lava formations, and just incredible. And then here's a little bit more where you're having days where you're up close to the blue-footed boobies on the left there. Fernandina has penguins. It's the only place outside of Antarctica and those surrounding areas that there's actual penguins that you're seeing. And again, you do all this and you go back to this beautiful ship and you grab a cocktail and you talk about what you saw. And then there's a biologist who's giving you a lecture and this and that. And then you're singing the alma mater to UNC Charlotte. It's a great experience. But I will keep moving along, try to keep myself, I want to be cognizant of all your time here. So I'll move a little bit quicker through these other 3. I really appreciate you all hanging with me. So now back to North America. And I love this trip because I think it's getting to parts of the US, at least in my experience, that a lot of people have said, oh, I'd love to see the Badlands. Oh, I'd love to see Custer State Park. Or maybe they have been to Yellowstone, but those other places, it's just far enough and whatnot to not necessarily get to. Grand Teton. So we're seeing this part of the US, and the key is we're doing it in lodges in the parks. So the property you're staying at is part of the trip. It's not like you're going out, oh, you want to get some fresh air, walk off dinner, and walk around the hotel grounds. You're actually walking in Yellowstone. You're walking in Spearfish Canyon. You're walking in Custer State Park. And our guides, for the most part, a lot of them were former rangers who are now working with us. and they're there the entire way to really customize it to you. Here are some of those lodges that I was discussing. And so we have access to these, a lot of them where it can be very tough to get because everybody wants to stay in the parks. But because we've been doing this for a number of years, we're getting access. So our groups are staying in, in the heart of these parks, that if you were trying it on your own, you might have some more trouble doing. So we start in Rapid City. So you're seeing the City of Presidents with all these incredible bronze sculptures of various presidents throughout the US, the unbelievable Badlands, unlike anywhere else in the US. So starting off with a bang, we go to the mammoth site where they have found some of the highest concentration of woolly mammoth bones. Again, there's a miner. I don't know what all these miners are doing, but I just seem to be bumping into them. Crazy Horse Memorial. So you're seeing still in progress, going on 50 to 60 years, which once it's done will be one of the largest stone carvings in all of the world. And another example of that context and educational element, we're meeting with various folks from the Native American culture and tribes who are presenting their art. They're talking about the significance of Crazy Horseman Memorial, and it's in a very organic, you're just having coffee, you're having discussions, things like that, but that you wouldn't just be able to Google and get that experience. So yeah, just showing you again to give you an idea of where we're at. And then this is really cool. So we drive a full day through Custer Park in these little Jeeps, and you're going through bison and elk, and you're right in the heart of it. I mean, for miles everywhere you look, it's just this beautiful expanse. And I think that's my favorite day of the entire trip. And then we visit Mount Rushmore, and I just this picture just popped up, but I think that's Bonnie Cohn, the founder of UNC Charlotte, if I'm not incorrect. But yeah, but we visit Mount Rushmore, and again, you're not just there to take pictures. We have someone there who is very close to the connections with the people who are building, designing it, the upkeep. He's an engineer, so he's telling you all of what goes into keeping that national landmark the way it is now. Then Yellowstone, that's the star of the show. We spend almost 3 full days there. Yeah, it looked like there was this pirate. I went to go help the guy. It looked so painful. He said he was from Eastern Carolina or something. I don't know, but Yellowstone, it's spectacular. And the key is we stay at the Old Faithful Inn, which is right in the heart of the park. It was built in 1903. Calvin Coolidge used to summer there. Dwight Eisenhower used to go there. It's just absolute magic. And we have small vehicles, and we have enough for people to go and do their different interests. So if you want to go on a hike, if you want to see another spring, if you already see one, you want to see another, and for all activity levels. But these are people who have devoted their lives to Yellowstone that we're with. So you're really getting that in-depth perspective on it. This is a really, really cool program. So it's Scotland. And what I like about it is you have wonderful anchor cities in Glasgow and Edinburgh, but then you get up into the Highlands and the Lowlands, and it's not rushed. You really have these days that are just kind of leisurely paced, but you're seeing a lot. And then I'll talk a little bit about, I think I mentioned the famous tattoo performance. Now, this one is definitely a one where, again, the property is part of the trip. So we're not trying to just stay somewhere, fancy or whatnot, just for the sake of that. We're staying at these really beautiful, wonderful properties because they're remote, or they're, right at the lake. So that, whether it's the King's House in Glencoe or even the Kinton Charlotte, which is, a stone's throw, you can walk down to the Edinburgh Castle. We're doing it because we want it to be ingratiated within the trip. So here we go. The anchor cities is neat. If you've never been to Glasgow and Edinburgh, they're very different. Glasgow being much more kind of an artisan, much more of a worker city, and you get that feel, and then you get the counterpoint at the very end in Edinburgh. So we do Merchant Square in Glasgow, and New Lanark is this beautiful old preserved late 18th century mills town. We go to Palace of Holyrood House, which is where Mary Queen of Scots lived for a number of years. She actually was younger there. She developed a lot of her tastes for music and food. She loved lamb and land and some of the pies of Scotland and things like that. And it's funny, actually, then when she went on then and tried to usurp Elizabeth, and then she was, was executed. People always worried, oh, was it painful? You know, did they give her a meal at least? And thankfully I did read before she died, Mary had a little lamb. So it wasn't a terrible execution, but you can see some of the history of the great Mary Queen of Scots at the Palace of Holyrood House. Okay, and then just the map again, so you can visualize just how far you're going. So Glencoe, Inverness, and then you come down the east coast for Aberdeen, and then go to St. Andrews too. Very different, each of them. You know, in the lowlands, much kind of flatter, and then as you get up into the highlands by Inverness, all the lakes, the lochs, and the undulations that you see in those pictures and documentaries and things of that nature. So this is great. This is my favorite part of the trip, when you're outside these cities. Like, for example, a Loch Lomond day. So we'll wake up and we go to Stirling Castle, this incredible castle that in the Highlands, you kind of feel like the, you know, William Wallace, Robert the Bruce. Then we go for lunch. That's also a distillery. So you're trying different scotches, you're having lunch. Then we go on a ride around the lake. And then you go back to this incredible 18th century property that you're staying at, and just have a leisurely walk and dinner. And that's kind of the vibe of this trip. And then, you know, everyone, you know, who likes golf or sports, but beyond that, the history of St. Andrews is really quite amazing. You walk around the old town and things like that, but then you can also walk parts of the course too. If you are interested in golf, it's obviously one of the highlights of courses, the home of golf too. And here we go, the military tattoo performance. So they only do it for a 3-week period every August, and it's hundreds of performers. And you can see the backdrop is Edinburgh Castle. They've been doing it for 300 odd years. It's like a 2.5 hour, 3-hour performance. You know, we do Edinburgh during the day. You have this great dinner. You've had some wine, this and that. You go there and you're seeing the sun come down behind Edinburgh Castle. And it's a spectacular performance. It's not hokey. It's very much authentic. They want to, you know, honor the performance from before. So you're not getting like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of thing. And there's those darn miners. I don't know. So the last one is completely kind of a different style, but I would say maybe one of our most popular trips we have. And it's Vancouver to Toronto by rail. It's in a high-end 5-star train that goes across the entire expanse of at least the majority of the provinces of Canada. So the train is really the highlight. And so what we do is we take the front part of this train, which is the Prestige 5-star class, and it's only our group. It'd be UNC Charlotte and maybe one other school. But our group is only about 30 people max. And so as you can kind of see there, everything's, you know, elegant. You have, you know, we have our own bar cart, our own observation car, our own lounge. Obviously we have our own sleeper cars. It's all inclusive, open bar, all the rest of it. And you're just going through such different, distinct things each day. Dedicated concierge service, but then you also have an expert guide and a lecture series on there. So as you're going, you're getting that context that are so important to the alumni market. Great anchor cities in this as well: Vancouver, Toronto, and very popular extensions. And when I say an extension, that means that you can add onto the trip. It's optional. And so, for example, we have that extension in the Galapagos. You can add an extension to Machu Picchu and the Sacred Valley, which is also very popular. So people can see those two bucket list trips as they go. You pick up the train and then it's off to Toronto. And so the first part of that is you're going through the Rockies. So you take some stops in Kamloops and then Jasper National Park, where you can go and do nature walks. And explore some of those old kind of towns up there in the Rockies, but it's spectacular. Then as you keep going down from Jasper and the Rockies, you're getting into Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So you're going through the prairies. So you've been up in this, dramatic Rockies, and then you have these just peaceful prairies, going on end before getting to Ontario, where you go through the Canadian Shield, which is this rugged forests and lakes, and so different than the last couple of days that you'd seen before. And then, so that's it. I hope I, kept it, good, relatively concise, but give you an idea. And I am happy to to answer questions, all the trips, the in-depth itineraries, pricing, anything you need is on that website down below, charlotte.orbridge.com. It's devoted just to these 4 trips. You can sign up there, you can reach out with questions, things of that nature. But just can't tell you how excited we are for these slate of 2025 trips. And yeah, thank you. Maybe I'm not sure, Jody or Scott, if there are any questions or in that chat.
Bobby, I just want to thank you for this presentation. It looks like Norm is going to have the time of his life in 2025 for sure.
Yeah,
there is one question.
Okay.
Are the prices different for single occupancy?
That's a great question. And yes, unfortunately, they tend to be about 10% or so more, sometimes a little bit more than that. I don't know, whoever asked that, it's one of the tough parts of our industry that, we try as much as we can to keep those single occupancy rates down, because we know there are a lot of single travelers out there. We also can, we often might match people up too. If they say I'm willing to maybe share with another 49er alumni, we can do that. But yeah, it tends to be about 10 to 15% more for the single supplement.
The next question that came through is, do you ever offer trips which are 5 or 6 nights versus these longer trips?
Yes, we do. We have some variety. For 2025, yeah, these ones are kind of in that 7+ range, but 7 to 8. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, we have various locations, and maybe it's something that, when we look at 2026, Scott, Jody, and I can maybe sprinkle some of those in there. Or also, you're always welcome to just travel, say you're UNC Charlotte, and if you see one, or let Scott know, hey, that one looks interesting, maybe we try that one next year. Typically our trips are about 7 to 9 days though.
Another question just came in. Are there payment plans and deadline dates for signing up for each trip?
Yes to both. So, we have a deposit required at signing, and that's about, I think it depends on the trip, at $800. You have a 30-day grace period. So if something comes up or whatnot, you will fully refund your money. And then there's kind of a schedule of cancellation penalties on that deposit. There's a date for that. And then a final payment date, but we're very flexible. So we'll have people, still paying up until the last, 20 days before the trip, if that's something that is more doable for them. Because it's very important for us to, we respect our partners. And so we want to remain more flexible than just a cut and dry travel company, which have to maybe adhere to more strict guidelines.
While we're waiting for more questions to come in, as we look to the future, what are some of your most popular trips throughout the country? Throughout the country for alumni associations, throughout the world for trips.
Sure. Yeah, well, I would say for 2025, you've got a handful of them. Definitely the Galapagos and that national parks one where you're staying in the lodges. That would definitely be at the top of the list. And then you're getting into, like a safari is always very popular. And we do one in Kenya that, it's only, I think, 9 or 10 days. So it's not terrible. Some safaris, you've gone 3 weeks. And it's, a good price point. You're staying at these wonderful properties. So that would be one area. And then the other one would be another kind of bigger swing would be Egypt. Egypt going down the Nile River. And then as far as another North America one that, could maybe be of interest for the 49er community down the line would be Alaska. Alaska is just always popular. We use, similar to the Galapagos, a small ship that goes up through the inside passage, but then you can also do an extension up further north into the heart of Denali Park. And so those ones are some other ones just off the top of mind that are really popular that might, be something we look at down the line.
And I know that we've got some seasoned travelers that are on this webinar tonight. if they have ideas for places they want to go, are you open to finding those spots?
Absolutely. We're always open, and we're a medium-sized company, which gives us the ability, we can kind of pivot pretty quickly, develop itineraries. We're not a huge company that has to, go through many channels. We're working with our partners. We're listening to the alumni community. We're listening to the schools, where are they looking, where they want to go, and we have a wide network, so we can plan something pretty quickly. For the seasoned travelers out there, another one maybe we think about is there's a train trip in the southern portion of Africa that you do South Africa, you do Cape Town, Joburg, but then you take, again, it's a train kind of like the one we do in Canada, but you're going up through Namibia, Botswana, up to Victoria Falls. That would be an example of one that's a little bit more adventurous, a little bit different. But we're always looking for new ideas.
And we have a question about travel insurance. How does that work?
Highly recommend it. So we have a partner we use, but there's a number of companies out there. There's different levels of travel insurance someone can purchase. The most comprehensive is you can purchase travel insurance that's called cancel for any reason, which is exactly what it sounds like. You don't have to give a reason up until the day of travel, and you cancel, you can get your trip protected. But a lot of people will do kind of variations of that if there's an illness, or for whatever reason they can't travel, or lost luggage, or things of that nature. There's plans kind of for everybody's level. And we'll provide all that information. We have a full guest service team, air department, operations team that we're there from when you book or when you're interested until you get home.
We have a question from a wise guy in the room of, do you ever do trips to New England? And if that's the case, I would be your tour leader. And so I can find a new job as a tour leader for New England trips.
Well, that's good to know. So if we do New England, we've got a line on Jody leading the trip. But no, we don't. Not New England, but we're looking at doing one of our national parks trip and doing a New England and Canadian Maritimes, maybe developing that for 2027.
Any other questions?
And if you think of anything, I know I don't mean to throw this on you, Scott, but if you email Scott, then I can get back to you. And, I'm always available. And yeah, like I said, we're just working with schools. So we love the questions. We love the ideas. We love them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to email me directly. I also dropped a link in the chat. This is a Google form where we're collecting interest from alumni that maybe these 4 trips don't interest them, but we are taking suggestions for future trips. So we'd love to hear your feedback on the length of the trip you would prefer, your budget, kind of the activity level, and the different destinations. So definitely fill that out for us so we can take that into consideration for future trips.
With no other questions on here, I want to thank Bobby for a terrific presentation. And thank you all for attending tonight. I hope you saw something you liked. And if none of these are trips that work for you, fill out that form like Scott said, and we will do our best to offer future trips that meet your needs. But I'm pretty excited about bringing in alumni travel as something that we do at UNC Charlotte. So I hope you enjoyed, and thanks and have a great night.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Go Niners.